Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. Well, folks, I hope you're staying cool out there right now. It's going to be a hot one today here in the Portland metropolitan area. But anyway, I've got quite a show today. As you notice, I'm sort of increasing. I'm introducing the first show towards an ongoing show that I've dedicated to reaching out to vets. And as you'll see, you'll see my brand out there. No vets left behind in Oregon, but realistically, no vets left behind. And I've been working in that particular area for some time. I figure about 2 years now. But now it's gotten to the point that I think I know what we need to do with the program. And so the whole idea is it's going to be an informational, educational sort of a format kind of a situation. We'll be bringing guests in to basically educate you about the opportunities and the benefits for veterans, if you will, and educate the public in all due respect, because we thank you for recognizing vets by saying thanks for serving, which is good. But you need to know that right now, because in all due respect, we don't have a draft anymore. So in many ways, our millennium young men and women are not that familiar with the military aspect of it, but it was something that really was very much involved in my life and in my guest that I'm going to be sharing with you in just a moment. Many of us were in there, and we're getting at that point in our life that we would like to let you know why you hear the marketing of as far as vets are concerned. Thanks for serving. So anyway, just bear with us and bear with me. But the bottom line, every month I will be doing a show specifically to vets, and I'll be bringing guests on that will talk about the various services, whatever it might be. Maybe the rationale for funding the program, the rationale for who's involved in the program, who are the beneficiaries. We'll talk about families. We'll talk about their kids. We'll talk about folks that are not even vets. But anyway, I think it's going to be a very good show, and we're going to do this, and we're looking forward to doing that. And so consequently, I figured I'd get someone here locally that I've known for a number of years, and it just so happened at the time we didn't even realize that we were vets. He had a tough job, and I was out on the outside, so to speak, working for waste management at the time. I was in recycling and whatever. But the bottom line is that I've known this gentleman here, Mike Burton. You might have heard the name before. Mike has been very much involved in politics in the state of Oregon, but I'll let him tell his story aspect of it. But anyway, but today, like myself, he's very much involved with providing or educating folks about the services for veterans. And besides just himself actually basically giving the individuals that information, he also is using those services. And I think that's a great thing. That's the asset that he and I both have, because we are both enjoying those services, and our families are also doing those also too. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have Mike start off the whole program with the reaching out to vets, and you'll be seeing more of him because he's very, very much involved, folks. So today he's just going to give you just a little recap, a little overcast, if you will, of what he's been doing and how he got involved in the program and what he's doing to date, and you'll be seeing him a little bit later on about other things. Okay, Mike, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Bruce. Good to be here. Nice to see you again.
Why don't we just go on and begin by just give a little history, a little background, and yourself?
Well, myself, yeah. Actually, I spent a total of 38 years for pay purposes in the Air Force, 24 active and 14 reserve years. Some of those tours I had were in the Vietnam area. Actually, I was in with a special operations group in Laos. Did operations in there, and that was not a very happy experience. And I carried some scars out of that operation. I'm sure most vets do, one way or another, particularly if they've been in combat. But in the days, if you remember, when we came back from the war, nobody wanted to admit they're even there. So we kind of hid all that for a number of years under one thing or another. And then a few years ago, I was in the legislature, and then when I left the legislature, Governor Kuligowski wanted Ted is a Marine, and he I always have to remember to say he was. I can't say he was a Marine. Right. He still is a Marine, just like all your Marines are. Still Marines, but he wanted to. Oregon, of course, has very, very limited active duty stations, and those are mostly the Coast Guard folks. But a lot of Guard troops that were being deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan And as they did those rotations, he wanted to make sure that we were treating those vets coming back in the needs that they had. And so I was on a task force, a governor's task force, chaired that, and we did a series of meetings around the state to find out what the issues were. And first of all, there's I've got several volumes. We actually printed those up, and I could show you what they were. We introduced 17 different legislative initiatives. All of them passed, but there was a lot of that's at the federal level that we couldn't address, but we did send notes off to Congress and our Congress people. But what we found out was that a number of things. First of all, there are a lot of vets, and it doesn't make any difference whether they're in the current battle area, but Vietnam vets, even Korean vets, who simply haven't come in.
Yeah.
That is, they either don't think they're entitled, they don't want to put up with the bureaucracy that they know is there, they don't want anything to do with the military, and so they're missing out on the rights they had as a service person. And many of them think they have to have been in combat. They don't have to have been in combat, but they have to have served honorably. There's a few restrictions, but anybody who's been in the service is designated as a vet, and there are certain entitlements that they have. And those entitlements come in the form of either medical assistance. There's the three branches of the VA, really, or the medical facilities, and we have a large medical facility on the hill here in Portland and a big clinic over in Vancouver that covers that. And then there's the benefits. The benefits are things that everything from education assistance, housing loans, compensation for injuries or this sort of thing that might have been incurred. And then the burial section, which a lot of people don't know. If you've been a vet, they will bury you at least, but they take care of that end of it. So there's a lot of things out there, and I think a lot of young people coming back, or if you're out of the Vietnam area, you didn't want to apply for these things. And as you get older, you find those needs get greater. One of the first things I got was my hearing, because my hearing, I had tracked, it was in really bad shape, too much time on the flight line and noisy airplanes. And then it went on from there. But during that task force that I was with on the governor, what we found is people not coming in. Secondly, people not understanding how to apply for the process, which is not an easy one, but if you can get help with that. And then the other thing is some people who just simply will never come in. They usually end up being homeless people on the streets. A lot of those folks, they need a lot of social assistance to get in. And as I watched this, I thought, it actually, what came to my mind was some memories of the past, and it brought it up. I thought, oh my gosh. And so I finally got to I had some injuries. Those injuries got to be, the outset of those got to be so severe. I injured my back. I was using a walker. I had all kinds of things. I had operations, but I finally called the VA and said, I need help. And fortunately, I knew how to do that because I was on the task force. And so I got in and went through, before I got benefits, it was almost 5 years. And that is
how long
not.
Was that ago when you,
it went on for 5 years.
You were in the legislature during that time.
No, it actually wasn't. This was after the legislature. I started making application.
I'm talking about with Ted.
With the governor. That was after I left the legislature and after I left Metro. I was in the Metro office too. So it's quite a bit of time.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
And then Ted, I think it was before. He asked me to do that after I was out of those offices and had time to do it theoretically. So we spent a year and a half on one task force and another year on another one. And we went all over the state. We talked to dozens and dozens and dozens of veterans, heard from people that said, we don't know how to get in. It's too hard. I keep getting turned down. I don't have any assistance. And so it became evident to me personally that after I was able to go through the process, but see, I retired from the military also, so a lot of people haven't, and so I had that longer ability and the rank to sort of figure out what to do. And I thought there's a lot of people that don't have that, and they need help. And it's much better, I would argue, at the VA than it was even when I started doing this 6 years ago. They've changed the processes in some places, but the first thing somebody has to do is say, okay, I want to go get the help. I want to go find out what I earned. This is no giveaway. This is people earned these benefits, and they should make yourselves available. And the first thing they need to do, if they have a DD-214, that's the famous Department of Defense document, the 214. Everybody got one. If you don't have one, you can go online and get one. It's easy to obtain that. And then take that DD-214 and go to a certified veteran services organization. And those veteran service organizations are Veterans of Foreign Wars. Mine was done by Disabled American Veterans. There's a whole list of those. Make sure that they are certified and they have the federal government designation to be a veteran services organization. That organization, if you go in and say, I need help with that 214, they will assign a veteran services officer to do your case. And what they'll...
Don't pound on the desk here.
Don't pound on the desk.
Yeah, you go.
So what they'll do is they'll take your case under advisement. They ask you to sign a power of attorney to them, and the reason for that is so that they can act in your behalf while they're submitting this document. That doesn't mean you can't also talk to the VA on your own, but believe me, these VSOs have been through the works and they know how to do it, and you may as well have that help. It doesn't cost anything. In fact, they can't charge you for it. If you go to a veteran services place and they say, well, we're going to have to charge you, so they're not real. So it's a free service, and they'll help you put through the beginning to load in your information. And the more information you have, the better and easier it's going to be for them. If you have any of your old sets of orders, if you have your medical records from the military, if you don't have them, they can get them. They'll do that. If you have, a lot of people didn't save their orders. TDY orders are really important. And I'm one of these people that keeps all this stuff. Much to my regret, sometimes I look in the file drawers. What is all this for? What I kept it. But they'll take all this information and they'll submit it, and they'll say, what do you think your issues are? Well, you can say, I don't have any right now, but my hearing's bad, or I've got a limp now. I broke my arm when I was on active duty, and it hasn't quite, I got bursitis and and arthritis in there now. It could be your kidneys starting to go. If you're a Vietnam vet, or even later, you've been around some of the chemical agents that cause deterioration. The stuff that when I was in Thailand, we used Agent Orange to kill the weeds off underneath the barracks. And if you get around that stuff, it's pretty bad, and it can end up getting you diabetes, certain conditions that are designated that are pretty bad. Anyway, the more you have to substantiate your claim, the better you are. You might not have anything. You say, I didn't keep any of that stuff. The Veteran Services Officer then will help you build that case. They can track down files for you and forms and records, and also you can go to a civilian doctor. And if you don't have VA care, you can go to your civilian doctor and have them write a letter saying, this person has this malady or this illness, and it could very well be due to whatever, and that can be submitted as part of the record. So there's a lot of help. But the hardest thing is to get people to come in and get started. You're put off by saying, look at all of this bureaucracy, look at this thing I put up with, 4 years with Uncle Sugar, and I don't want to have to go back and do that again. Well, that's their choice, but they're going to lose out potentially on some benefits. There's other benefits too, and people think they may be beyond that, but there's home loans that are good, low rate interest, no fee loans that people can get for housing, educational benefits, and things like this. So there's a lot of that out there, and people just aren't aware of what it is. So hopefully come in.
Well, good. I wanted you to just kind of give them a feel of how you got involved in the process aspect of it. And like you said, everyone has their own, i.e. exposure in terms of how they got into the process. In fact, from my standpoint, I spent a couple tours up in Nam, but like I said, when I got back, I didn't feel too good about anything. And I wasn't received well. And so, but I'm the kind of a guy that I was a Marine recruiter when I came here, and so consequently I got involved. But what got me in was that my son was in the Army, and I didn't realize he was having all the problems we were having. My wife and I had divorced and whatever, and so finally we hooked up, and then I didn't realize he had all these problems. But long story short, at the end of the day, he committed suicide. And it was PTSD. He had PTSD, and I didn't know. And so naturally, in the process of burying him and this, that, and the other, and getting the families together and whatever, all of a sudden I find out that through another contact person that there were benefits. It was in PTSD. And so then I pursued that piece, and so that was the reason why I got involved, because beforehand I didn't want to do anything to do with the VA at all. And so I've been in the process about 5 years now, a little over 5 years, and that's about the size of it. But I'm just saying, everybody has their reasoning with their background, but like you said, it's there for you. It's there for the vets, and we do need it. We do need it, and in most cases I will tell folks when I'm out there reaching out to them. That's why I wear my cover and stuff, like yourself, and I want to get involved and get you to share with us a little bit more about your other involvement outside of the other things that you're volunteering on. And that is because when I see a person, if they're a vet, the first thing I will ask them is that, are you getting your benefits?
That's my question to him too.
And what's your number?
Yeah.
You know, if you're retired, fine, but what's your benefit? And then you go from there, and then I say, well, okay, fine. Gee, Bruce, I didn't. Okay, fine. Well, let's get in the car and let's go down there. You got me?
All right.
And then after then you know all of the programs, like the ramp program. I want you to share that with it, because you got me involved now and some other things, and so we're just going to go on and partner this whole thing. But I just want to let you know that I too was involved in the process like other folks, and later on we're going to be talking to a family, well actually a couple, who got involved in the deal, and someone that I've known, and he didn't know anything about it, and I got him involved in the deal, and so it fits everybody. It's there for the vets aspect of it. So with that, why don't you now spend a little bit of time now, how did you get involved in this volunteer? Like, you did the Ted Kulingoski thing, but how did you get, now you got, I see you one day, and then so we're Facebook friends, and the next thing you know, you got me at meetings up in Vancouver, Washington, at CMAC. And what is CMAC, and how did you get involved in that whole process?
Well, that's probably too long a story for here, but I was also diagnosed with PTS, and the VA was helping me deal with that on top of the injuries that I had.
Right.
I was, at one point, I had to use a walker to get around, and was using a lot of opioids, which fortunately I got off of very quickly. But they recommended that I get a stimulator into my back. I have one in there now. That has eased the pain a great deal. You got me past that, and then you can start dealing with other things. But at the same time, actually I moved to Vancouver for a lot of reasons. One is because the clinic was close over there. And I was working with, I belong to the Air Commando Association. I'm a lifetime member of that. And the Air Commando Association was the special operations group that I was with when I was in the Vietnam era. And they were making a film. They wanted to make a film about people who were in the secret wars, it was called. And I had become aware of that. That's what this bracelet is that I have on here. That's actually made out of some of the parts of the 80 million unexploded ordnances we left in Laos.
Wow.
And it's killed 27,000 people since the war was over with, and injured as many. And so I've been involved in that because I felt somewhat responsible for all of that happening. And anyway, the Air Commando Association also is involved in that, and they asked me to, they were making a film, and they asked me to see if they could find some people who had been in that war in the area I was in. And I heard about this CMAC group that was that vets came to, and I went down and said, anybody here been in the secret war? And nobody raised their hand. And I'll tell you a quick story on the side. Eventually I did find out about one. A woman called me and said her father had been in Vietnam and was in the Air Commandos. He was also in World War II. And I said, can I come out and interview him? And she said, yes, we're moving him up to a home in Seattle very quickly. And she said, should I call the newspaper? And I said, yeah, call the Columbian. And I got to this house, and the guy from the Columbian was already there. I hadn't met him. He was interviewing this guy. And the guy had his World War II leather jacket out. He was a P-38 pilot. And he had his logbook out. And the reporter from the Columbian was looking at it and said, his first mission said shot down B-24. And he said, wasn't a B-24 an American airplane? He said, yep. Didn't shoot it down. He said, shot up. And he says, isn't that? He said, yeah. He said, what happened was this B-24 was coming back off a raid from the oil fields in Poland. And they got shot up, and they had to forced land, and they landed in Germany. And the Americans didn't want the Germans to get an intact B-24. So his first mission up was to go and bomb that B-24 so they wouldn't get in it. And that's, it's a funny story. Anyway, the guy gets through with his interview about World War II, and then I sat down with this fellow. I said, I'd like to talk to you now about your activities with the Air Commandos in Laos and Vietnam. And he said, I can't talk about that. It's secret. And I said, well, it was, but you know, this is they released most of the information starting in 1997. He says, oh no, I signed a document. I can't talk about that. So I never got my interview. But those kind of things. Then I found out what the CMAC is, the Community Military Appreciation Committee. It is not a veterans organization. It's a community association that puts on a lot of the events over there, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Veterans Day, all these activities coming up.
Yes.
I thought this is good works.
Yes.
Most of the veterans associations, I think all of them in that area belong to them. Buffalo Soldiers, for example, which I think you aware of that. The DAV, all of these help out. We put those associations on. So, but we also, through the meetings we have every other week, learn about people who need help. I got a message today from someone in the group that said, "Can you contact so and so because he doesn't know how to get started."
Yeah.
And if I can get somebody started, I'm real happy.
Yes.
Because I know if I can get them into the right place, get them that material, and then you know, and if they get slowed down, I've had people call me and say, "Well, I got held up here. Okay, let's go down and fix it."
Yes.
But I feel good when somebody gets underway because it usually ends up with a good result.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So yeah, it's a good place. And then I then became Clark County's representative to the VA Advisory Board up on the event of that meeting,
I saw that. Yes.
up on the Hill, and we just get information about what's going on. And I have to say, VA has taken some hits, and it deserved them.
Yes.
But in the last 5 years, they have tremendously improved their processes, and have focused on trying to get. That's what that RAMP program is. That's a rapid appeals. What is it? Rapid appeals. I'm never good at acronyms. Rapid appeals modernization program. And if you're older or you got a short situation, you get into that program. They'll take you directly to a hearing, and you can get something resolved. There's different ways to get into that, and I think we'll probably hear about that. But those are the kinds of things that are happening now that wasn't available when I first started. It took me almost 6 years to get my benefits when I put in, because the process was slow, was one thing. Secondly, I found they told me, they came back and said 3 years of your records are not existent. Well, because of the unit I was signed to, and I didn't work for the CIA, but they were around. The CIA actually sequestered all of our records, and it took the VA until 1998 or so to get those records turned back to them, and they were all redacted. But then I could get going. So that's what slowed down my request. That kind of stuff isn't happening anymore, I hope. So it's a much better process than it has been.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I just happened, again, like I said, I sort of use it myself. It's designed for those guys that are, like I say, 65, approaching 70 or better.
Yes.
You know, because they don't have that many years. So the idea, rather than maybe 10 or 15 years after you go through that process, I mean, I've even seen stories where people have just, they were gone, you know, overnight. You know what I'm saying?
It's an old saying says they're just waiting for us to die, so they don't have to deal with it. But I think now they've trying to fix that.
Oh, it's really neat. They've got the judge. They've got the whole idea that you're sitting in. You got a VFW rep with you, and you just sit in the front of the judge and jury, all in one person. And if you got stories to tell, and if they're so legit and whatever, that person will be taking notes and this, that, and the other. They're able to check. They've got their computers in hand, and they can check your DDT-14, your jacket if you got one. If you don't have one, if you need to go this, that, and the other, and whatever she does, whatever that person doesn't have. After those notes, they go back and they check things out along that line, and they just send you something back. So now you're not just sitting and waiting. And then if you can even appeal that, if all of a sudden they will come back to you and say, well, look, this was pretty good. This could help out if you were able to get me some information about
They'll
this.
tell you what it is.
They'll
not
tell
a blind
you exactly
date.
what it is,
and
then you can track that back down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the process is awesome. So if you got families out there that whether they're your father or uncles or relatives of any sort that are 70 years old or better, living in rest homes and things of that nature, hey, please contact the VA. You got me? And then we got a number on the screen now. They can even give you I'm giving you my number also too. You probably get the CMAC folks. You'll be getting involved with those things too.
And you bring up a good point, and that's about families.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the first, situations like PTS, the first people that recognize that are the families. Or if you're hard of hearing, it's it's your spouse going to say, get your ears fixed.
Yes.
But it's usually the families, and so they're helpful to talk to and talk with. and also they're the ones who may suffer from the problems you
much so.
have.
Yes.
And there are certain things that you can get through the VA that will help them. The home care assistance. There's a whole lot of programs that I'm sure you're going to have people on your program that will
Yes.
talk about those.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things that will help out the spouses and the families of people who have.
And don't forget, with your help.
I'm glad to help you.
Getting folks in.
You bet.
Getting folks in, okay.
Yeah.
But you're right, because you know what the suicide rate now, vets are running around 22 a day type
That's
thing.
what they say, yes.
22 a day, imagine. And when you look at the age factor aspect of it, many of those folks are in that bracket I'm talking about. Besides the young folks, you know, from
the young folks, and then the people over 60 or 65
right.
is where the
That's right.
highest
It was
rates
a really
are.
tough time.
That's right, yeah.
And for instance, we saw one another even at this 45 club. You know, they've got this 45 club up in Vancouver aspect of it. Kind of a unique piece. It's sort of like sits on the same criteria of an AA, but it's a military AA. Well, actually, you're sitting down, and you can tell your stories a bit. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you're with other vets.
It's a support group for people that have PTS, and
Yes.
and if you look at somebody who has that, they usually have a number of other issues that they
Yes.
brought into the table with
Yes.
them. So
And
it's
similar issues.
similar issues,
And
right.
they're all vets.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
they're
it-
headed up by vets.
They're headed up by vets. They're headed up by
Who can
vets.
answer the question. People feel comfortable in that environment,
Yes,
so that's
yes.
good.
And then there were some other things that I really got excited about. Some of the program at CMAC when you invited me over to that particular group. The fact that there are so many activities that were happening up in the Vancouver area, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I
Throw out some of the highlights.
I spent so much of my time in Portland, and I love Portland, and the state of Oregon, and I still do. And when I moved to Vancouver, it was sort of with some reluctance, but I was looking for a single level house because my movement thing is hard to get around, and somewhere yet close to also the infrastructure I need to support me like a VA. So to find the house I wanted, to be honest with you, in Multnomah County or close by here, would have cost me $60,000 to $70,000 more than the one I actually ended up building in Vancouver. But I still stay associated over here. But the Vancouver is a very, very pro-service oriented community. It's a smaller community. The Fort Vancouver over there has a long history. And the companies there, the corporations that are involved over there, are very supportive. When we have an event like we had Memorial Day recently, that was supported by the Waste Connections, which is a large company over there. It helps out with companies like Costco holds a Heroes Night. The Columbia Credit Union, which is a great credit union, give us help. And we go to them and ask for in kind services to help provide these things. They're a very, very positive community, and because it's a smaller community, it's easier to get to that community, I suppose, than it would be over here in Portland. I think CMAC's unique. But it's helped by the community, and having the fort there with its history is a helpful
that
part
was
of
huge.
that.
I mean, just seeing the mayor there and representative from Congress there. I mean, it was just beautiful. I said, wow, we don't have this in the Portland metropolitan area.
No, well, again, it's the Mayor Ann Ogleberry is a member of CMAC. She's not a vet, but her husband was. A lot of the people involved in this are not vets, but they want to support that veteran community.
They want to support the vet. I thought it was awesome.
And we also have the fire and police folks that we support in an activity on and trying to get people not to forget 9/11. And then we do one with the high schools. The schools over there, we have what we call our community salutes. All of the high school seniors are going to go in the service. We gather them up at the end of in April. That's where they get sworn in together. There's usually about 300. They get a letter from the governor. They get a coin from us as their first coin. We have cake and ice cream for the parents, and it's just a way to say we've got your back when you go in the service.
Well organized too. A lot of folks were involved. I mean, I'm just excited about the whole deal.
I get excited about it.
I appreciate the fact that you gave me the opportunity.
So,
I thought I was just.
You are now a member of CMAC.
Yeah, but I noticed that initially I was just thinking I was just visiting. You know what I mean? You said, and then you announced the fact. Oh, by the way, I'd like to introduce Bruce Broussard, who's a member. I said, what do you mean? No, once you walk in those doors, Bruce, that's it.
There's no dues, there's no fees. You just give us your time.
Well, folks, as you can see, we got a lot to talk about, and Mike's going to be. Hopefully, we're going to do more of this.
Glad to do that,
more of this, and we're going to probably be inviting other entities from the VA to talk about the various services. So you'll be aware of that. And the other thing is that because the way they're going to be on YouTube, and you can go back and check out the various shows, the back shows, and pick up that information aspect of it. So so those are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing. I really appreciate the fact that that you're involved in the process, because I know your background aspect of it, and I could also see the commitment that you had made, and looking at the folks that are around you. I mean, gee whiz, wow, we need to get that information out, and I really appreciate that. And I think we're at that point now. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to just go on and say, Mike, we want to thank you very much, and we'll just sit down again and just start setting something up for the next time around.
Sure.
Is that fair?
Glad to do it.
Always a pleasure, Mike.
Okay,
good.
thank you.
We're going to take a short break, folks, and then we're going to give you an example of how it really works. Okay?
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend.
We're gonna get more involved now.
Yeah, good.
Okay, look like we are back, folks. My George, I hope you got that information on the front end. We're going to be doing more of that, and just like we're doing in the second half hour, we're going to also give you folks who've actually participated in the programs, if you will, and maybe tell some of their stories, if you will, in terms of what happened to them when they were in those wars, if you will. What's the definition of PTSD, and we'll interview folks along that particular line, and what services are they involved in, and the impact that it has on our society. I mean, just outside of the VA, for that matter, and why is it so hard for guys to actually come to the table and get those services? You'd be surprised at some of the folks that are there. At the one of the was Mike. When Mike invited me over to the CMAC organization, there was a gentleman that was being profiled by the Columbia newspaper. And he was there. He told this story, and I thought that was a kind of an interesting piece. But you'd be surprised at the kinds of folks that are here within our society, within your community, if you will. Yeah. So we're going to educate you a little bit more. So this particular segment, you've seen these people here before, they've been involved with some other parts of my shows. In fact, I met Don DuPay initially through Theresa, and we were talking about his book.
Well, that was the second time.
That was
You
the second
actually
time?
met
What
him
was
the
the
first
first
time,
time?
2006, when he ran for sheriff.
Oh yeah, here goes that memory loss. I'm getting it back to the table. You have the same problem I have. But anyway, Don is here. But anyway, yes, when Don was running for sheriff, he came on the show. Yeah. He had to remind me. Isn't that something? But anyway,
You've done a few shows.
I did a couple of shows, about 5 maybe. But no way.
5,000.
Anyway, good. Don got into the program, and thank goodness for Theresa and whatever. And the next thing you know, I was sort of like pushing it a little bit more, and then he started getting involved in the deal. And the next thing you know, he's sitting in the front of the VFW, and we went through that process, and from that point on, it just went on. And Theresa basically, he and Theresa took on the responsibility of following up on this deal. And to date, in all due respect, and guess what? They're able to get some of those services, and it was somewhat beneficial too, very much so. So I just wanted to make sure that I invited these folks over today, because they're very much involved in a number of the things. There's another one right there looking at me now. His name is Big Bob Williams. He needs the help too. He's got PTSD. He was in the Air Force. Mike, you might talk to Big Bob. He was a union rep. I know you know Big Bob. Okay. But anyway, so what we're going to do is that we're going to let Theresa and Don just chat a little bit about the process, how you went through the process and whatever.
What Mike had to say, about when you get out of the military, you're younger, 20, 30, and some of the injuries, you don't quite think about. But when you get to be 50, 60, geez, that hurts, or I can't hear very well anymore. And you start to think back, maybe could it be what I did in the military? I was stuck copying ditties, copying Morse code for a long time, and that goes right into your ears, and the squawks and squeaks and buzzes of the radars go right into your ears. So if you're up on the flight line, these guys, a lot of them got earphones on for ear protection. But the guys who have to work with earphones, it goes right into your ears. So I got to thinking, maybe the Navy messed up my hearing. And then when I got evaluated, they accepted responsibility for it. So there's a whole lot of old radiomen, old ditty chasers, old radar intercept operators who might now have hearing problems they didn't realize were caused by the military. So man, if you have an ache or a pain, a broken arm, you can't hear anymore, you can't see, then you should go see and investigate if you might have some benefits, because it's not welfare, it's entitlement.
That's right. And what we discovered was that sometimes the veterans, the VA is not always honest about what benefits a veteran is eligible for. When we had the first claim, it was handled through the VA, and it was $665 a month, which wasn't a lot. And they didn't even include the unemployability. There's a special part of it that is for anyone over, I think, 70, but they didn't even include that. So, and you were the one, Bruce, who got us in touch with, who told us about Don's eligibility for benefits, and we got in touch with the VA. We contacted the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and it was a really great organization. They were very helpful. And I just want to say they're located at 100 Southwest Main Street in Portland. And the number is 1-800-827-1000. Okay. There's also a very important number that we also used because we were having additional difficulties with the VA and his second claim. So I called the White House VA complaint hotline.
Yeah, this is an important number.
It's really important. And I raised hell with them because it's a long story, but some people that we had communicated with were not being honest, and I caught them in a lie, and so I was pretty furious. So that number it's the White House VA hotline, and that number is 855-948-2311. And that's a really important number to call if you feel that you're being ignored, or if you're not being helped in the way that you should,
or if they're waiting for you to die before you get your hair, call these people.
But yeah, Don got a full Navy pension, so he went from we went from really struggling, and we're also, we're Oregon Greystone Press. I'm the chief editor, and so we're very busy with that too, but it's not a big money maker. And we were having a hard time just surviving. So he got a full Navy pension, which he was entitled to, and probably could have gotten 15 or 20 years ago, even without the hearing loss at that point. But yeah.
I wanted to take one more thing that Bruce, that Mike talked about, is their ability now, or more willingness to go back and look at old records.
Oh yeah.
Because I was in the secret stuff too, so, but it was a long time ago. My PTSD is like from 60 years ago. And so are those records available? And they asked me to prove a couple of incidents that caused my problems. And there were two separate situations. In one of the situations, three sailors died. So on the face of it, they're asking me to prove these guys died. And what I think is happening now is that they're doing the investigation, finding that, yeah, there was 3 bodies, yeah, they were shipped back home, yeah. And the other point was when I was taken into custody by the communists in the border zone. That's a big PTSD problem for me still. And there was, I have forgotten, but there was some disciplinary records.
Yeah.
We got restricted to the base for getting too close to the communist zone. So those records are now available, and I'm hoping that these guys are going to find those records and come along with my PTSD claim.
Well, Don,
if not, I'm going to be knocking on your door.
Well, just let me throw the point. See, once you were going through the process, then you got to this particular point. So when you, to call that last number, the idea is that you need to go through that process initially.
Oh, absolutely.
To dot some of those I's.
Yeah.
Because no, the new ramp program is perfect. Because what happens is, because you're over 70 years old aspect of it, you got judge and jury.
Yeah.
You can tell your stories.
Yeah.
And the judge will be basically taking these notes down, and then they will do the investigation. They've got the office staff and this, that, and the other to follow up on some of your points, because they can go to a base and pull that record out, and if they'll notice your name there.
I think the White House people did that for me, because it went.
It was listed, yeah.
It went zoom.
Right.
Here's your check.
And I spoke to them twice, but the check that we got and the pension that he has right now is only for the hearing loss.
Right, right.
But there's another aspect of the investigation that's frustrating, and that is, we were notified by the VA that we had to provide some kind of proof about the 2 traumatic incidents before they could contact another agency to determine who died.
Yeah.
To me, that seems really manipulative and designed to make veterans just give up and fail. They have this agency, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a part of the VA that they needed to contact to confirm that 3 men died. It would be as easy as putting in their names. But we had to prove, we had to send letters, when this incident happened. We had to contact Don's 2 old buddies from the Navy, Bob Christie and Jim Urkel, and they had to write statements. That took a month, because these guys are in their 80s.
These guys are 80 years
Yeah.
old too. I'm lucky they're still alive to vouch for me,
And it was really only because I was pretty tenacious, and we both worked together to make sure it happened. But it was very frustrating. And when we had the issue with the other agency, which is an agency that the VA contracts with to make appointments, just to make appointments. And this woman accused us of saying something we didn't, and accused us of being not being cooperative. And I was outraged because it simply didn't happen that way. That's when I called the White House VA hotline and I raised hell.
Well, I mean,
these are vendors used by the VA.
Just to make appointments.
But again, in all due respect, and Don and Mike, we pretty well understand. That's the government. That's the military.
Right.
I mean, that's what we were accustomed to when we were in there. It's about paperwork aspect of it. But again, like I said, is that the things that are coming up, they're recognizing it with the ramp program. In fact, now with the VFW, when you to go into Vancouver or even on the Hill now aspect of it, we have the option. We don't have to worry about sitting there, signing up, and just sit there in line waiting.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating. But now what they've got in the situation now in Vancouver, for instance, they open up at 8:30, so they'll if anyone wants to just come in and just sign up and wait from 8:30 to 11, okay? But after 11, you can make appointments.
Yeah.
You have to be. It has to be an appointed kind of a deal. But one of the things that I'm going to probably share this with them is the fact that you need to get that word out, because a lot of vets are still coming in early in the morning and sitting in there with their wives, and it's frustrating. Sometimes I just walk up and just open it up and, hey guys, what's going on today? And then some of the guys, they start talking, and then but they need to have that sign up there. But then they finally put one on the door, but they need to get it out to the world, and that's one of the reasons why we want to do this here, because like I said, from Monday to Thursday, it's you walk in from 8:30 to 11, and then after 11 I think to 3:30, something like that, it's all by appointments. And on Friday, appointments only. Friday, it's appointments only for the Vancouver office to apply, if you will. And that's a good piece, because you got folks there that are helping you in all due respect. Unlike with Theresa, I mean, luckily he's got her as a background. She expedited the process. But a lot of these guys
I'm
don't.
good on the phone.
Yeah, they don't know. They just don't know, and so consequently, but it's good to have that rep there from VFW to go through that process. And I normally just carry them through.
The other thing is that when I called the White House VA hotline, complaint line, I spoke to a really great guy. His name was Steve, and he said he was, very helpful. And he said, I'm going to be on this, and because of Don's age, this is going to be a priority 1 investigation. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what they are.
And he was so supportive and nice. So if someone has a real issue that they feel they've been treated unfairly, the White House VA complaint hotline is really definitely worth calling.
Work for me.
Because they really got on it.
But I still have to remind you.
And the ramp program.
Because you guys went through a process first.
Yeah.
That's a very important piece. It's not just a cold call.
Yeah.
Just for first date. No,
Right.
go and register. Make sure you got that DD 214. And make sure you at least have gone through the process. Put your name into the system, and maybe you've got a repeal aspect of it. You might have said, well, look, I'm going in for unemployment. You go in for the unemployment, and then they say, no, you don't qualify. Well, okay, fine. Now you've got something to work with. Like I said, you call that hotline.
And veterans have earned these benefits. This is not working the system. I actually told a family member the good news about a week ago, and in so many words, she said I was good at working the system, and I was really offended. And I said, no, these are benefits that Don was entitled to years ago. These are benefits veterans are entitled to. And he did a lot of work. I mean, 23 years, 3 years active service, 20 additional years in the reserves. These are benefits he earned, he's entitled to. And I'm just really grateful, because our life is not going to be as difficult.
Well, another thing that we did when we went down there, when I took you down over to the VFW aspect of it, I made sure you took Theresa with you.
Yeah.
Took your wife with you. So, and a lot of the guys, we're so hard-headed, I don't want in. And I think I made the point, like I say to most of the guys when they bring their wife, I say, don't you say anything. Yeah. I'll do the introduction, and then Theresa will talk, because the bottom line, she can take care of you, that type of deal. And then most of the guys will start saying, wait a minute, let me tell you about what I got to say. Yeah. And, but my point is that's the rationale. Yeah. And I would suggest that if you're married and you're at that age factor, take your wife with you. Take your wife with you, or take the responsible party with you, whether it be someone who's just helping you out, or this, that, and the other.
And part of the reason that
very important.
Don's just not very good on the phone, because he's hard of hearing, and he's 82, and my father died a few years ago. He was short of his 88th birthday.
But he's a young 82.
He was in World War II. My father was in My father was in World War II. He was a staff sergeant in the Army. He won the Bronze Star for Meritorious Achievement, but he wasn't around all that noise, and he wasn't doing what Don was doing. So he was 88 years old, and he didn't have a hearing aid. I could sit next to him and have a conversation. He could hear me. He was a little hard of hearing, but nothing compared to Don being basically 80% hearing impaired. That is a direct result of his service in the U.S. Navy.
But one thing I might say about him also too is that he also hit a milestone. He picked up his degree
last year.
Last year, picked up a degree. He's some years old. I mean,
he was the oldest graduate in 2017 in June, and he was mentioned in the program.
Right. And I was his tutor for a while. Yeah. I was the tutor, so I'm part of that degree program.
One of the things that I didn't finish on.
What's up, buddy?
I got finished. Well, you got to go through that. You got to have your DD 214 for school.
No, you
right on my coattails.
It just takes one on the show.
And he wore my old cap and gown. that I bought in 2009 when I graduated as an undergrad. He wore my. They were. I bought mine for $35 in 2006, and in 2017 they're selling this for $50. And I said, well, I've got it in the closet.
You wore that one, John?
He wore mine. Yeah.
I haven't seen those photos.
One size fits all, you know.
I haven't seen those photos, Don.
Yeah.
They're on the internet.
Okay.
And my daughter graduates in a couple more terms, and she's going to wear the same cap and gown. We're going to recycle it.
Well, isn't this great, folks? I mean, the fact of the matter is, and it makes me feel good. The fact of the matter is that, you know, that we were doing other things besides the fact he's written a book. And what's that one? He's a former, well, once a Portland police, always a Portland policeman. And, you know, we
Behind the
talked
Badge
about
in River City, a Portland police memoir.
it was good, easy read too. Letters are nice and big.
Exciting. That was my special request for our vendor, to make the font larger than normal, because I didn't want an 8 or a 10 size font. I wanted people to be able to read it easily without it being large print.
I don't grab small print stuff.
Me neither.
You did well, Don. You did well. Teresa did well on that piece. But anyway, it's really nice to be able to say that, you know, hey, we're here. And in all due respect, I've done about 10 guys like that.
And we are so grateful to you, Bruce. Thank you.
I'm grateful for the fact
You've
that
changed
you guys
our
were
life.
there. Well, hey.
Just the simple sharing of information has completely changed our life.
Someone shared me. Now we met Mike. Mike's going to really get involved, because what we're going to do, we're going to record. We're going to record this kind of information, and in all due respect, then people can just go to that history, and if they want to see an example, a sampling, if you will, of folks who have gone through the process. And now
you have to have these people coming. You have to have them coming in.
Exactly.
First of all, you have to have a disability that you can relate to the military. Yes. And then you have to have a hired gun to go through the system.
Yep.
Because the computer system is designed for you not to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need somebody like the VA officers to help you through it.
Yeah.
I also noticed on the internet a couple of days ago, there's a company called Veterans Comp and Pen. They'll do it for you for a fee.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You don't need a
but this is all free.
I know, but no,
Yeah.
the
This
system
is all
is
free.
there.
Yeah.
See, it's like anything else. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it while you're in the service. You know, it's like the people who are handling that file. That's the power.
Yeah.
Right. You got me. And so it's just important that we have a good system. I guess that's the only thing. If I had to say anything about the outside service aspect of it, is that we've come so far from the standpoint of trying to put something together under this one roof.
Yeah.
You got me? And people tend to be going out this way, because I did. I even went through the process of, at least just to kind of get a feel for what kind of services you get when you go outside of the VA aspect of it. I found out I didn't like the idea of what they were doing, and because what happens is that they have to go through a certification process.
Yeah.
And then I basically reported them in, so then I just basically stayed with the VA.
Yeah.
But my point is that, you know, we spent so much time and so much money, and we've got quite a staff now that's working on that piece. You had something else going? What's up, buddy? Talk to me. I'm coming in. Come on in there. Come on in. Now this is you can see how Marines are. You know, he just came in and just taking over the program here. Go, yes, sir.
You know,
Go on, Michael. He's a producer, but he basically puts all of this stuff together with the rest of the guys. Go on, Mike. What's up?
it's my birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday!
But I want to talk about this issue because this is important to me, as well as someone who's a disabled vet.
Okay.
That had to work the system.
Yes.
And you can't do it yourself. You need to have an advocate.
Yeah.
I went through a VRO or through the county. So Multnomah County Veteran Services also provides one-on-one assistance to get you through there too. So I just want to put that out there as well.
Multnomah County.
Multnomah County.
And that was right in front of you. Know, that was my campaign. You know that, don't you? That's why I ran, because I was having problems with those folks down there.
Right. You ran
Washington
for what?
County also has a veteran service. So each county, if you live in Multnomah County, you can't go to. If you live in Washington County,
No, but they do.
You got to get to one. You got to get the veterans officer in your county.
But they have to get that word out. And that's going to be something else we're going to do too. We are going to get the counties, Clark County, Washington County, the whole 9 yards. Because
so Multnomah County helped you out.
Yes, absolutely. So I had hearing problems from explosives in the combat zone. So
Okay.
that'll do that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what's your number? What's your percentage number?
I got 10%
You
for
got 10%?
tinnitus. Yeah.
Well, you need to see me after the program. I'll
We
take
need-
you on
we
over
need to
there.
bump that up to
I
at
will
least
fix you up.
12%.
Get you squared away. Get you squared away, Marine. I mean, again, that's a typical Joy here. He doesn't want to get out there and dig, but
Let
he's
me,
going to
let me
dig
tell you
now.
what they told me. They told me they would not give me anything for tinnitus.
That's right.
Then, when I got the evaluation, they included the tinnitus.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And after we complained to the White House
Yeah.
VA hotline, that was included
So
in the,
yeah,
in the
tinnitus,
list.
yeah.
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 It does affect you.
And I'll say this also too in regards to when you're talking to these folks, they don't tell you what to say to them. You've got to be able to respond to
Yeah.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very important
Exactly.
piece.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important, if possible, to have someone with you. That's why you have the VFW. But on my end of it, that's why I go down there and I say, okay, fine. I can relate to them to a certain degree.
Right.
Because like anything else, they got this chart that says, okay, fine. If they don't say this, this, and that, they don't qualify.
Right.
Yeah.
And once you understand that chart, then you can just start pointing those things, and that's where that communication, and that's why the VA's come up with the RAMP program. Because a 70 or 80-year-old person coming in and talking to a young man or whatever, a woman or whatever, talking about applying for benefits, and the guy said, well, what do you mean? You don't you understand what's going on? And so they've related that, and that's a heck of a program.
Yeah.
It is.
There's
Cool.
there's lots of ways for applicants to fail, and the first way is just go to our website. It's really
Yeah,
easy to
yeah,
use. Now
yeah.
I'm computer literate. I couldn't figure out the website because it's not easy to use. It's not intuitive. It is an ancient website, and it is a terrible website to manipulate.
Okay.
And we got nowhere with the website.
Well, that's what we're doing with this. I mean,
Yeah.
we got him. We got it's gotten so good. I mean, I'm really liking this. Matt, you've come on the show. I mean, you just basically.
I
dropped
know. I
everything
just
you wanted
jumped
to
on
do.
the show, but
I
you know
mean,
what?
yeah.
I have to get back, or we're not
No
going to
problem.
close the show.
And with
Thank you for letting me just jump
yeah,
on.
No problem. With 10%, you need to see me. See me after the show, will you? Okay, Mike. We'll get something going here for you. Good. But again, that's really the essence of why we're going to do what we're going to do. You guys are part and parcel of doing these other things, and we do something else besides this aspect of it. And then Mike is so important because right
Yeah.
up front with you,
He's
I mean,
fabulous.
he is so involved in this
Yeah.
process, and I was just excited. I was elated. But naturally, I don't want to be getting into about 10 or 15. This guy's he's got a directory. That he just tends to follow. In fact, he's just doing too much. But hopefully, I'm going to slow him down a little bit.
He does a great
I'm going to
job.
give him the show. This way, he's able to do this. He'll be able to make the point, and then from that point on, I'll tell everybody. Okay, now if you want any reference to his background, what you need about this particular subject matter, just hit the button. It's called YouTube. There he is, right there. He's telling you the whole story.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been great. Again, thanks very much. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Really great, fantastic. Well, folks,
And
thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, this is our first show, and we're going to be doing more of this. In fact, our next guest is just sitting up there waiting. He wants to sit in here. Big Bob Williams, Air Force, played basketball. I know he's got some serious problems. Anyway, enjoy yourself. See you next week. Take care. Good job.